And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. The Premier League returns for 3 days of fun before we head off to the first international break of the season. Of course, we sadly only have 7 games for you this weekend due to a couple more cancellations due to the Queen's passing, as well as the Brighton Crystal Palace game being called off for a train strike, which is now not going ahead. So there are still, like we say, 7 fixtures to look ahead to today. What we are going to do is we're going to run through the results from Game Week 6, way back when that was, because we did not have the opportunity to go through those results in Game Week 7. And then we will look ahead to these 7 fixtures happening this weekend in Game Week 8. If you are enjoying this series and you're happy to see it back, even if it is just for one day, please let me know by liking the video and sharing it with a friend and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the content we've got over the next couple of weeks. We do have the return of the Nations League predictions coming for you this week as well. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on part 2 of that series. Let's look at what happened in Game Week 6 in the Premier League. So these are the games that went ahead a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say this was my best performance of the season so far and quite possibly ever on the series. I can't quite remember all of the scores from last season. But this was the results, and as you can see, we managed to get 3 correct scores, I think for the first time ever. We got 2-1 Chelsea correct, we got 1-0 to Wolves, and of course the 3-1 Manchester United win, which again, I thank you all for those who watched along with the stream and have watched the highlights of how I reacted to those games. There were, of course, a couple of upsets, probably the biggest one, Aston Villa getting the draw against Man City. And there were a couple of controversial VAR decisions which had a big swing on some results as well. All in all, it was a game week score of 12, which brings my season score now up to 39, which isn't so bad for 6 game weeks. As always, let me know down in the comments how you got on, and let's look ahead to the weekend's fixtures, starting with 2 games tonight. And the first of those is Aston Villa up against Southampton. Now, this is a slightly difficult one to pick because there's been a bit of an illness bug going around the Aston Villa camp this week. Ollie Watkins and the goalkeeper Martinez are both big doubts for tonight's game. It's unsure if either of them will make it. If Martinez doesn't make it, it looks like Aston Villa will have to use a third-choice youth team keeper in goal, which will definitely make a big impact on the performance. But I'm still going to back Aston Villa to get the win. But with those slight concerns over a couple of players, I'm going to give Southampton a goal as well, and I'm going to go for 2-1. The other game tonight sees 2 newly promoted sides, Nottingham Forest taking on Fulham. And given what happened the last time Nottingham Forest played, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. I was tempted to give Nottingham Forest a win, but if they defend the way they did against Bournemouth in that second half, then I think Fulham are going to have plenty of chances. And with the form that Mitrovic is in and the new addition of Carlos Vinicius to their lineup, I think they're going to score some goals as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in that one. On to the 3 games on Saturday. We start with the lunchtime kickoff, which is Wolves up against Man City. In my opinion, this is still only going to go one way. Yes, Manchester City have struggled in their last 2 games. We spoke about the draw with Aston Villa, and in my opinion, they were quite lucky to get the win against Borussia Dortmund. If it wasn't for that unbelievable goal from the ridiculous Trivela cross and the karate kick back heel from Haaland to give them the win. I still think they'll have too much for Wolves. Wolves, of course, have played well recently, but I think the way Man City play, I think it'll just be a little bit too much for Wolves. And I'm going to be a little bit disrespectful and go for a 3-0 win to Man City in that one there. Next up, we have the only 3 o'clock kickoff, which is Newcastle against Bournemouth. Again, I know Bournemouth got a good result in their last game against Nottingham Forest. Newcastle, of course, very unlucky with their last result due to that controversial VAR decision. I think this is Newcastle's game to lose. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Newcastle in this one. And finally, on Saturday, we have Tottenham up against bottom of the table Leicester. Leicester desperate to get some points on the board, but against Tottenham, certainly at Tottenham, I don't really see it happening this time out. Tottenham, of course, did lose in their Champions League game in midweek, but they weren't playing what I would call their full first team, in my opinion. Some might disagree with that, but I think there were a couple of players that should have been playing that weren't. At the end of the day, I think Tottenham bounced back with a win against Leicester, and Harry Kane's record against Leicester speaks for itself as well. So I'm going to go for 3-1 to Spurs in that one. On to Sunday then, and we start with a midday kickoff between Brentford and Arsenal. So look out for that one if you weren't aware that these games are slightly earlier than normal, because there was going to be the Chelsea-Liverpool fixture at the end of the day normally. So we start with Brentford and Arsenal, and I think this is probably a tough one to call. Brentford have surprised a fair few teams so far this season. Arsenal obviously won their opening 5 fixtures before losing to Manchester United. This is their first game since that defeat. And I'm still going to go for Arsenal. I think they should be beating Brentford. But, I mean, I thought Man United should beat Brentford, and we all know what happened there. But I'm going to go for the Arsenal win here. I'm going to go for 3-1 to them. And finally, the last game of the weekend, the last game before the international break, sees Everton taking on West Ham. 2 teams that have very, very inconsistent form right now. Everton are slowly rebuilding their season under Frank Lampard. Have had a couple of good results recently. Of course, that 0-0 draw with Liverpool being probably their best one. West Ham, again, like I say, very inconsistent. Good wins, but also poor losses. Their game in the Europa Conference last night ended 3-2. It's just all a little bit chaotic for them at the moment. So I can't really say one way or another which way this one's going to go. So I'm just going to put it straight down the middle and go for a 1-1 draw. And that is going to be it for Game Week 8. As always, I will put the fixtures in the description, allowing you to copy and paste down, and let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen. And just another reminder before we go that the Nations League prediction series will be returning, I believe, on Tuesday morning, potentially even Monday morning, depending on how I'm feeling. And hopefully I will see you there. Thank you very much for watching.